say that I think when people say that I make a boring topic interesting, it's because the topic is so boring that the bar is so low. But but it's so important. So my background is actually in wealth management. It's not in philanthropy. And so I have a completely outside perspective on philanthropy. And I had no intention on working for the church or the foundation, though. I had been asking myself and praying about wanting to do more, wanting to have more meaning and purpose in my life, and so I thought maybe the diaconate was the way to go. And then this opportunity came out of nowhere, so I accepted it. Um, only on the condition that I could talk about this kind of stuff. And they said, "Well, we don't know too much about it, but go ahead." And so here we are, almost 2 years later, and and this is what I'm doing. I mean, my specific training is in estate and business transition planning, and uh, and so okay, funny boy, we heard you're funny, we heard you're energetic, you know, let's just get started.
And
Um,
Anthony, before you continue, I'm going to just welcome Sister Tui Hung, just popped on. So, Anthony, she's our provincial. So she's the main boss in charge. Okay. So I invited her to come in. And so she's going to be with us for this portion of the meeting too, so she can hear what you have to say. Okay.
oh, well, sister, it's nice to meet you. She
Thank you.
started recording, so I'm so limited in what I could say, but I well, so
Thank
let's
you.
just start off with some of the basics. First of all, the reality of a person's net worth is this: 3% of a person's net worth is in cash, 97% is in something else. And as Catholics in general, we're used to asking for cash. So we're asking for pennies and stepping over dollars. So back at Merrill, the biggest month for check donations came out in December. And I tell people it wasn't because of Christmas or Hanukkah. It had everything to do with it's the end of the tax year. So when we deal with the person's portfolio, we've got to make adjustments. And so they've got some highly appreciated stock that they don't know what to do with. And well, they know what to do with it because we tell them, we say, look, this is you need to reallocate. It's going to cost you a lot in taxes, but if you just donate it, you get fair market value for that donation. Keep the cash in your checking account, or if you're back east in your pocketbook, and then that's already been taxed. Keep that for yourself. Let's use highly appreciated assets to deal with that. Okay, so why is that important? Well, let's do some simple math, and I do a lot of air math, so I have to keep it simple. If I buy a stock for $1 and now it's worth $101 in appreciation, when I go to sell it, I'm going to have $100 worth of capital gain to deal with. Well, based on my tax bracket, blah, 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 I'm in California. That might be 35% that I'll be paying. So $35 out of the 100 that's going to go straight to tax. But if I donate it, I get a fair market value. I get $101 as my donation. So now I can deduct on my taxes $101. What did it cost me? Well, in reality, it only cost me $1. It's just that it grew in value, but it only cost me $1 to give that. So it cost me $1 to give 101. You don't have to be that smart to figure out that's a good deal. Plus, I make fair market value. So in December, we're sending out all these checks um, uh, to charities for this reason. Actually, not checks, stock. Okay, so then how do we do that? Well, it's really, really basic. Think of it as like asset to like asset. So don't sell the stock whenever, if anything you do triggers tax, stop, timeout, no more, pause. If I knew Spanish, I'd say a few other things, but I couldn't think of it fast enough. Um, uh, if you sell it, if it triggers cash or tax, don't sell it. Can you give it to a Catholic charity that it can accept it as is, and then the charity sells it. Because why? Well, the IRS allows charities to sell things without paying tax. So if you give it to me and then I sell it, I don't pay any tax. Wow, that's the magic formula. So now when you think about anything that's highly appreciated, and I will pause for questions, but I figured so far this is pretty basic enough to not generate any questions. But um, uh, we every time I do that, I always forget where I am. We when we accept it. Okay, so anything that's highly appreciated that I can accept as a charity that I can hold on to and then sell, I don't pay tax on. So we're not limited to just stock. Anything that's highly appreciated. We had a donor who I met recently, and he said is one of our biggest donors to the foundation. And he said, "Oh, I just recently gave $300,000 worth of my surfboard collection." Remember, we're in California, so surfboards are big. I don't know if you have a surfboard collection in Idaho or wherever you might be, but in a surfboard collection, I don't know how you can get to 300. Maybe it was signed by all the big surfboard people, but and I said, "Oh, why didn't you donate that to the foundation?" And he goes, "I didn't know you guys accepted that." Right? That was a $300,000 potential donation that went somewhere else because he didn't know that we did it. Well, in essence, we really didn't because we never thought that way. But why wouldn't we think that way? If we can own it and hold it and sell it, why wouldn't we sell it? So that's the kind of thinking that outside the box. I just noticed, Jim, your last name is Box. So, so that we have to start thinking about. We have to change our perspective as to what we ask for gifts. Now, secondarily, what we have to change our perspective on is we always take the posture of, please help us, almost like we're begging. And I say that respectively because we know we are to be beggars in this world, as St. Francis taught us. But in this circumstance, what I'm saying is that we only look at it as, hey, give it to us when we have a lot of value to give to others. Why? Because of our special tax advantages. So this is a win-win proposition. I talked about December being the biggest checks month. The next biggest time we get checks is when someone goes to sell something major, sell their business, sell real estate, something major that they're going to sell, and it's going to what? Trigger tax. So now, how can we help? Well, the fact is, if I told you, hey, if I can divert some of the tax dollars that you're already going to be paying, but instead of paying all of it to the government, you can siphon off some of it to go to your favorite charity, would you do that? Well, everybody says, well, sure. Well, what if I told you I could actually save you some tax and siphon off a little bit to give to your favorite charity? Would you do it then? Everyone goes, doubly sure. Well, that's what we can offer as a charity. We can offer that sort of thing. They're looking for deductions. In Orange County, and I'm sure everywhere else in the country, every day people are going to their CPAs, their attorneys, their financial advisors saying, I'm going to sell X. I'm going to be paying a lot of taxes. I want you to come up with some ideas. Well, back in my Merrill hat, I would have a lot of arrows in my quiver, but one of them was charity. You don't even have to be, this is the part, the recording part where if I could pause, I would, but you don't even have to be charitably minded. If it makes dollars and cents, you would consider it. But if you are charitably minded, which you should be, and that's the right way of doing it, then you would want to consider it. So now, what do I mean by that? Okay, I go to sell, I have $1 million property. I go to sell it, back to my capital gains problem in California, especially, but all the major states like New York and others. You not only have the Fed, but you have the state tax. I mean, the top rate in California is 13.3%, in addition to the Fed. And the top rate for the Fed is 23%, not 20. So add that up, that's a lot. So let's just use 40%. If I go to sell $1 million property, that's 400,000 I'm going to be paying in tax. So of course, if you're going to consider something like that, what are you going to do? You're going to go ask somebody. You're going to talk to somebody about that. As a charity, we deserve a seat at the table because this could be a win-win proposition for us. So what are some of the wins? Well, I'll give you a couple of easy examples. The first of which is accepting property. Now, around our parish, in Orange County, we have 62 parishes, 37 schools. If someone went to the parish pastor and said, listen, I want to leave you my house, or I want to leave you this property, they were being advised that, I wish I could have pushed pause again. They were being advised to tell the donor, hey, if we can't use it as a rectory, or if we can't live in it, then sell it and then give us, the cash. Well, I would say to them, well, how many people did that? The number was almost always zero. Why? Because they didn't receive any of the tax benefits for the donation. So again, we're begging for pennies, stepping over dollars. The reality is if we can accept that property and then go to sell, then we would be getting a larger donation than we probably would have. They get fair market value, and there you go. It's a win-win situation. We've helped them. So why would someone give the property? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, they're looking for a big donation. You don't know the other things that they have going on. One of the most recent articles was of Dan Snyder. It was I think it was the Wall Street Journal. He was the former owner of what used to be known as the Redskins, and he was kind of forced to sell the team. Then it was unexpected. Well, it was kind of expected, but he had to sell, and that was a major tax hit for him. So he was looking around, scrambling for deductions. So he had this big piece of property, one of his homes, one of his many homes, and it was, I think, worth like $40 million or something. And it was more worth it for him to donate it than accept the cash. It would only exacerbate his problem. Well, it was difficult for him to find a charity that would accept it. Well, he didn't, and I don't know this for a fact, it's being recorded. He may have even gone with someone that he didn't necessarily, agree with 100%, but they were willing to accept the property for the donation. Well, guess what? We can accept that property. We can accept a property like that. We're willing to take the risk and then sell it. And then now that's cash and capital for the church. Now, what if, for example, you didn't want to donate the whole property? Oh, by the way, that was based on a big need. But what if there were issues on the property? A lot of times people who own a lot of real estate, they have one dog property that they wish they could sell, but don't because of the tax. Bingo. Now we have a solution perhaps for them. We can accept it. We can accept fractional shares. All right, time out. You mentioned something. What's fractional shares mean? That just means a piece of the property. What do you mean? Well, they can donate 10, 20, 30, 50, 80% of the property to us prior to sale, and then they go sell it. They keep the 20%, we get the 80, or vice versa. They keep the 80, we get the 20. We don't pay tax on our portion. They get a bigger deduction for it than if they would sell the property and then donate. So bypassing the math, you just have to take my word for it for the moment. So those are the kinds of examples. Let me give you a couple more and then I'll go to questions. When you sit down, when one sits down with a client, if you're wearing my Merrill hat, or even now on my charitable hat, sit down with a donor, the first thing we say is, look, what are you looking for? You're looking for a big deduction? You're looking to maximize your income, or some combination of both? That's the kind of conversations we start off with. So they say, well, I'm really deduction driven. Or no, I'm really income driven. How can you help me with income? Let me give you an example. Let's use this $1 million example. $1 million property, I go to sell it, can cost me $400,000. I net 600,000. I put that into a stock portfolio and I draw income off of that. What if I was to tell you that there was a magical charity box that if I put the house or the property into that magical charity box, I get a donation for putting it in now. While it's in that magic charitable box, if I can sell it and not pay capital gains. So what that means is that 400,000 stays in the magic charitable box. Now I've got $1 million in there. Now I take income from that. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to say what's better, to take income off of $1 million or income off of 600,000. Okay, so then how do we do that? That charitable box has some requirements. And one of them is then at the end, the remainder of this goes to the charity. But my motivation is to maximize my income while I'm living. Great, we both win. That property may have issues. That property may have something that I can't. Well, same thing. We can help. So pausing and summarizing for the moment. Anything that's highly appreciated can be donated. And as the church, as the universal church, we have the means, the smarts, the organizations that can accept these and work together for it. And then we can be getting much larger donations while having a win-win situation. We just have to think differently about how we talk to donors and how we accept and what we can accept. So my thing is, much to the chagrin of anyone that's in management, I accept everything. The first answer is if someone says, "Can you accept?" Say yes. Just say yes. We'll look at it. We'll study it. We'll determine. But just say yes. Fiat. Learn from Mother Mary. Just say yes. Then we'll figure it out. It just has to be worth it. So if it's a 10,000, well, if it's 100 or more, well, now we're talking. So say yes, and then we'll figure it out. The other thing is we always think, or sometimes, not always, but many of us think, well, I don't know, I don't understand any of that. We can work together. In Orange County, we have 1.3 million self-professed Catholics in our diocese. They said it themselves on the census. We're a third of the county. But we never work together. We think our local Protestant megachurches are the megachurches in Orange County. They're not. We are. There's nobody that has 1.3 registered folks here in our county. If we all learn to work together, if we all learn, remember to ask not just for your gifts of your treasure and time, but your gifts of your talents. There's so many talented, knowledgeable people that can help with all of these kinds of transactions. So we've built a board of folks, attorneys, CPAs, financial advisors, commercial brokers who are knowledgeable of all these things that can help. Well, they're here to help us. But when we started speaking kind of nationally on these things, we realized not everyone has access to folks like this, how we might in Orange County. Great. I'm here to tell you, we'll lend them to you. Let's just make it happen, because it's our mission. We have one mission, and our mission is too important to evangelize, but not just to evangelize so people know and are redeemed and have everlasting life, but to support the church, his bride, because through his bride is how we get the next generation of Christians. So, not too funny, energetic. I didn't have that many jokes, but when I'm rushed for time, it's the best I can do, sister. Questions?
Well, this is Frank. It's just a comment. Can you hear me okay?
I can. I'm just
Yeah,
worried about what the comment's going to be. It's always.
No, thank you for your time. I can definitely see and feel the passion that Sister Bernadette described. It's the one area that I just don't know a lot about is fundraising, and it's not an area that I'm very good at or have much experience with, or that sort of thing. But it was really eye-opening, this conversation, because the idea that I love that concept of we're stepping over dollars to collect pennies, because people have their money tied up in other things. And it was that this conversation's been a real eye opener for me. I'd never seen it that way or thought of it that way. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for that. And so if you're going to make a comment, just preface it with it's going to be something positive so that I can relax and breathe easily. But no, and I'll tell you, Frank, I joke only because of this. We're not used to talking like this, right? And with fundraising, I'm not saying we bypass all the other stuff that are true, which is develop the relationship, ask what's important for people, show your heart. I always kind of start off these things kind of almost jokingly, hey guys, I love Jesus. This is important to me and all this, but I'm just going to talk about numbers, right? I'm not saying that all of your philanthropy people need to start off going, hey man, it's all about taxes. It's just that it needs to be the arrow in the quiver. It needs to be part of the playbook in our conversations because it is happening, and it's happening to the tunes of tens of millions of dollars. We commissioned a study. Maybe this will be eye-opening for you. We commissioned a study in 2022 here in Orange County. Before we got a whole new crew, whole new way of thinking, whole new ideas at the foundation. And I was one of them. So we commissioned a study trying to learn what was going on. In 2022, Orange County, the largest donation that went to a nonprofit was $104 million. Is this thing on? $104 million. And it went to Hoag Hospital Systems. The next largest in that year from Orange County family was $74 million. It went to Hoag Hospital. Next, Providence Healthcare Systems. Next, Chapman University, on and on and on, down to $7 million. The church wasn't even on the list. Wasn't even on the list. Let me ask you something. The $104 million, did they write that out of their checkbook? No. As an attorney, they tell you, don't ask a question you don't know the answer to. So I already knew it. And that was, it was property. It was real property. We just had in the paper $50 million going to Mission Hospital. Property. And it was from a Catholic family. That's okay. I'm not saying hospitals aren't important. We run hospitals. I just saw that Mother Cabrini movie. I didn't realize how many hospitals she started. My goodness. So, of course, we want to give the hospital. There's so many worthy charities. Everything I'm telling you right now is everything I'm telling you right now is could work for any charity, for any faith. It's just let's put the money to do good. Let's not throw good money to bad, which to me is the government. Let's throw good money to good. People out there working with the people in the community. All right, soapbox stop. Thank you, Frank. Questions?
Anthony, I have a question for you. It sounds great, and actually, I live in the Diocese of Orange myself. How do we get the sisters, the Salesian sisters, on that list? Yeah.
Well, you already are, because I've already talked to at least one of your donors on this very thing. But I've been talking to Sister. Sister brought another lovely lady with her. I can't think of her name. Sister Bernadette.
Yeah, Sister Foon came with me too.
Yeah. I mean, talk about a lady who exudes joy. After I don't know how many times she said she tried to escape Vietnam on a boat, and learned to. I don't know how she has so much joy. Well, actually, I know how she has so much joy in her life. I just want more of it. And talking about this, sharing this. So we're and saying, if you're not talking about it, if we're not talking about it, they're going somewhere. I'm telling you. Every day we talked about this in our offices. So someone's talking to them. Someone's going, this is going to go somewhere. You know how many people in our parishes, Jim, have no children? And when I go to a pastor, not to make fun of them but just to make the point, and that is, Father, how many funerals have you had in the last 12 months. They say some number, large number. How many have left you anything? Because you'll know within 45 days, you have to be notified. He's like, none. How can this be? We're just not asking. We're just not asking, and they don't understand. There's stopping points. So I've sat there because I'm not in philanthropy. I just ask a lot of questions. So they're telling me, what are they saying? Well, we're not asking. No one's ever asked me that. No one's ever asked me for something in my estate or for property or any of these things. I didn't know it could be directed to where I wanted it to go, straight to the parish or straight to this particular charity, or what. Or they'll say, but when I talk to these folks that even don't have children, I ask, well, where's the money going? Oh, they're like, Doctors Without Borders, animal shelters. I mean, all things that are worthy and wonderful. But where's the church? We're just not asking. So we got to get good at asking. We got to know all that's possible. Our playbook should be like this in terms of what we're talking about. We just need to tell people. Did you know that you could buy an annuity from the Sisters of St. Joseph? Wait, what? An annuity? Well, wait a second. You realize the largest purchasers of annuities are people over the age of 65. And they buy it by the billions. And they buy it from Pac Life. They buy it from, Mass Mutual. They buy it from all these companies. Did you know that you could offer an alternative to that? Okay, well, what's the benefit? The benefit is, again, they get a deduction for starting a charitable annuity. They get income for the rest of their life, for the rest of their husband and wife's life. And then when they pass, whatever's remaining goes to the Sisters of Charity, or Sisters of Saint. Okay, who are you guys?
St. Joseph.
The Salesian Sisters
All
of
right,
St.
we're
John Bosco.
Salesian, but you're talking about the Sister of
John
St. Joseph.
Bosco, right? Did you know that? Okay, well, is it competitive? Yeah, based on depending on the age, it could be dollar to dollar the same thing you would get from that secular company. We just didn't know we can do it. Well, you can do it. So these millions of dollars should be going towards charitable gift annuities, not towards, the other thing I hear is homes. And then I'm going to stop because, you always want to be asked back, not forced to leave. I gave this talk at this one organization, First Friday Friars, and I said, blah, 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 blah. And someone stood up and was so proud of himself. Oh, Jim, I have to be careful because you're in our county. It's so proud of himself. It wasn't Jim, just so you guys all know. It was, and I said, blah, 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 blah. He stood up and he says, yes, guys, I'm leaving my home to such and such, Catholic charity. God bless you, sir. Let me ask you something. Are you getting anything for it now while you're alive? He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, you're going to give it once you pass, right? He goes, yeah. I said, are you benefiting from it at all while you're living? He goes, well, no, I didn't even think about that. Well, what if I told you that the IRS allows you, if you just make all the arrangements and document it in advance for something you're going to do when you pass, that you can actually get the deduction today for it. So even if you're on Social Security or unlimited fixed income or whatever the situation is, you could be deducting what you're going to do when you pass. You have living benefits to this. You should have seen his face drop. Why isn't anyone talking to me about this?
Right. I was going to say, education has to be so important in this aspect. Is the Catholic Foundation, are they out talking about this at the parishes or?
Yes, but a couple of things have happened. First of all, people have had to been warmed up to this kind of conversation, right? Pastors have so many things on their mind that it's not first thing for them. Deacons are now getting wind of this, so I'm presenting to the deacons, and we're starting to present to the parishes. One of our parishes took this to heart, and I didn't even talk. In fact, it's not even important that I talk. But they're raising money for their to build a church, St. Thomas More, Jim, and the pastor said, okay, I don't know too much about this, but you seem to make sense. We'll just add it, include it as part of our ask. All he said was, We now accept gifts. So I didn't even talk about IRAs. That's okay. Next time. We now accept gifts from IRAs, of stock, and of real estate. That's all he said. Puts it in the bulletin, announces it after mass each time for the raising. Last year, in only 6 months, he received almost $1 million in stock donation. The year prior, without any conversation about it, he only received 20,000. Nobody knows. If they know, they'll give it. When I talked to those donors that gave on the stock, they said, "Oh, I didn't know that." Or they said, "Yeah, I knew that. I just didn't know that I could give it to the church." That's our fault. So yes, I'm out there, but I need help. I need help to get this message out. If you guys, and it's not even about me. I'm thinking Salesian Sisters of St. John Bosco. Every communication you send out to your donors it's got to have a little something that says we accept from IRAs, stock, and real estate. It could be that simple. Maybe have a small article, which we can help provide you with those articles. We already have them written out and all that. We can have you part of our attached to our marketing toolkit. You put your name on it, whatever, and you publish it as you guys publishing it. And you put an article on benefits of gift annuity. And it's part of your bulletins, it's part of your outreach. Just that alone is going to make a tremendous difference for you all, including it. Any other questions? Because I know I wasn't supposed to be the whole meeting.
I want to jump in real quick, and you kind of touched on it already. The question is, how do we ask? You mention all these things and you start talking to people in parishes. A lot of them aren't going to have any idea of what we're talking about either. But how do we ask, and what resources do we have? And it sounds like you already have some set up for that. But I think
Yeah.
that's the most important thing, is how do we ask and how do we
Yes.
include that?
Right. Well, that's what I realized when I spoke at the University of Mary's event over in Arizona, and that was, there's all these other, like I see all these sweet sisters and stuff from some of these kind of small towns and all that kind of stuff. How are they ever going to be able to they didn't go to school for any of this stuff, right? So so that's when I realized, well, then we have to help. We have to help. We have to figure out a way. And so what I'm telling you is we're going to help. And it shouldn't just be us, but we'll start. And other foundations should jump on board. This should be a national thing where other foundations are, if you don't know it, we'll teach you. If you know it, but you can't do it, we'll help you do it. But we got to put our talents together. We got to put our Catholic smarts together. If there's 1.3 million Catholics in Orange County, and we just let them know, good gracious, how much money that could be. So back to your question, how? We just start, even if it's bad and poorly put together, like my speech today. It's better than nothing. And the trouble is, it's not, if I do it all at once, it's the glare thing and all that. So we got to spoon feed it to folks, but we have to start talking about it. We got to start putting it in our outreach. We need to start, all of the sisters. I don't know. Sister Bernadette told me there's like, you have an army of them in the U.S. It's like the largest, sisters.
Worldwide, we're the largest. In the U.S.,
yeah, there you go.
We're not quite as big as we love to be, but we're a good number.
Well, if we get you more money, you'll be the largest, right? Well, but the thing is that every sister knew. They don't have to know everything. They just have to know that if someone wants to give, there's so many things they can give. That's it. Have you talked to a professional about this? Where it can benefit you and the charity? No, So
I mean, interject one more
we
thing. Yeah, one more thing, like you just said. Okay, so we know how to ask. Say someone came to the sisters and said, "I want to give you this property," and the sisters say, "Great," and then they're going to say, "Well, now what do we do?"
Right.
And we have to have that infrastructure to be able to support that. And what's the best way to get that set up?
Correct. Well, here's what I'm thinking, because I see the need, and I've been talking to our foundation, is that we work out something where we're going to help. If you guys can't do it, if you can't do it on, we'll teach you. But if you can't still do it on your own or don't want to for whatever reason, then maybe we take a haircut and handle it for you. We do something like a 10% or something like that. And then the remainder goes. Well, there's, attitude of abundance. There's enough out there for everybody if we just learn to work together. You guys wouldn't have gotten that 90% to begin with, right? So why don't we do something like that? Because to us, it doesn't matter where the property is. And so that's kind of what we're working on is it doesn't matter where the property is. We'll figure it out. If it's something where you don't need to, we don't need to do anything except instruct. We don't need anything. I can do that in my volunteer time. It'll count towards my Knights of Columbus hours. So there are, I'm sure, are more people like me. We just need to find them, tell them that people need to know. You have access to our financial professionals that are on our board. And I've already talked to a few of them and said, hey, if the sisters of this and that need some help, would you be willing to at least do a consultation, no charge, just chat with them? They said, sure. So there you go. Go
Anthony,
forth now, 2 by 2. And
Anthony, I don't know if you even know this, but I just Googled you and I saw that you're at St. Killian's. We have a Salesian sister that came from St. Killian's in Mission Viejo. Sister Melissa, Sister B, is from St. Killian's.
Yeah.
So we have one of our sisters is from your home parish, even.
yeah, I mean, we're so connected. We're so
Yeah.
connected. I this is a true story. Jim Wahlberg came and gave a talk for us for one of our conferences. He was so good. I mean, it was like a pin drop. We had like 600 people just get quiet, and he doesn't look like much. He doesn't, he talks funny with a Boston accent. Sorry for those, in Massachusetts. And yet at the end, the message was, everybody is lovable and loved by God. Anybody, no matter how bad, could be redeemed. And like people were crying. So we had him out for a couple more events. We did the Carlos Acutis movie that he produced. We went and did it at the theaters with him. And then last night we did a business advice Catholic professional network, which we just started building, where he spoke because it was so impactful. But after I talked to him, and I was like, hey, man, I'm really touched by your message. I hope someday we can be friends. And he said, you know what, Anthony, in his, Anthony or whatever he says in his funny accent, he goes, how about brothers in Christ? And I'm like, yeah, we're already better than friends. We just got to learn to work together. So with that, I'm going to bid my fond adieu. And Jim, let's meet for coffee.
I would love that. Absolutely.
And then sister, you guys figure out how we can get this message out.
Yes,
but
and
it's
then
your message.
if you can, like how you're saying, you have that kind of like packet already where we can put our
we
name
got
on it.
So what we did is we created like an online marketing toolkit. This was supposed to be for our parishes.
Yeah.
So all we're doing is you want access to it, we get you access to it. So
Okay.
constantly update it. You can use anything that's in there.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, if you can get that to us, that'd be great.
Okay.
Okay.
Anthony, I'll send you an email.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome.
God bless you
Actually, I
guys.
have one
Thank
quick
you.
question.
Yeah.
I can ask. Anthony, have you seen for like the religious communities, if someone's making a grant to them, is it better for them to have a 1023 application? Because I don't think the sisters have a 990 PF. They don't file anything. Like, are the donors asking for some kind of documentation?
Of the donation?
Yeah.
Yes. The answer is yes.
Because I mean, they're a public charity. They can accept a donation for a 501c3, but
Yes.
for larger grants, foundations typically ask for something.
Well, so I don't know the numbers you're using.
I'm just wondering,
in
like,
terms of the form.
would it be
But
beneficial for them to file for
yeah, so
tax exempt status?
what ends up happening is there has to be documentation and filing to the IRS about
Mhm.
all these transactions, no matter what they are. You know, I got a list of like 50 I can talk about. They all need some kind of a documentation, or they need first a evaluation or something, a formal evaluation, and then the notifications and forms go out by the CPAs and by the attorneys. So there is a process for it. Specifically, the grant and what you mentioned, I can't speak to. I don't know what those forms are. I don't work on the
I
tax
know,
forms.
like from our end, when we are applying for grants, like if it's a private grant or whatever, and we apply and being a Catholic organization, we don't have to have a 990 if it's depending on the type that we're applying for, but then we have to do a grant report afterwards. So reporting on how the money was spent. But there are grants out there that like it's more governmental type, or state or governmental county, where to apply you have to have a 990, and if you don't have a 990 they won't let you apply. And so those ones we can't apply without a 990. And because I had something like that happen to me, like for the county of San Antonio, there was this grant and they're like, oh yeah, you match all the requirements, you could apply and we'll give you funding, but you have to have a 990. And I was like, we don't have that. Yeah, like, and it's just not something that our finance department does. Yeah.
Well, I wonder if we do it. I'm going to write it down. I wonder if we do it, and it's the same thing. Don't not accept it. We got to figure it out. Do we do 990s? Because that's what we do. Again, we should not. We're not. I mean, we do hold assets and invest them, but we're also a flow through. So if it can come through the foundation because they have the 990 and then it's donated to you all, why not? Let's figure that out. Secondarily, though, you bring up an excellent point, because this is happening right now. Private foundations, or they call them family offices. Some of them are Catholic. It's a Catholic family that has a family office. That's just a fancy word saying that they have so much wealth. They have kind of one office that handles everything for them. They have this sort of situation where they're like, we tried to give stock to our local foundation and they wouldn't accept it. And I'm like, what? They're like, we have real estate too as part of our portfolio. Would you guys accept it? I'm like, what? So that's the kind of stuff. Even a foundation has these kinds of non-cash assets that they might be willing to give and need to give for their tax purposes that you all can accept. Okay, I'm going to push the end button. So that
Anthony, can I ask you like a 2-second question real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'm the spoiler. I'm the guy that comes in at the 11th hour. So I'm a Salesian cooperator. The Salesian cooperators are the lay side of the Salesian order. And I'm actually the provincial for the Western province. And so my term expires in a few months. But the reason why I'm asking you all that is because one of the things that I learned when I first came on board is that the cooperators don't really have a separate entity as a nonprofit. In fact, it's sort of messy in the sense that out in California, in Bellflower, and various other places where we are, we sort of have this. We share the same accounts with the sisters in some cases, and it's sort of very fluid, right? And I say all that to say, Saint John Bosco, who is my saint, I claim him as mine, and that's that. I will tell you that Saint John Bosco founded the lay order of the cooperators to do exactly as the name calls it, to cooperate and to help, not only in the conversion of souls, but also in supporting the sisters and supporting the priest. I think that as an entity, there's an incredible amount of potential for us to help them. The problem is that we're not organized in a financial way. That's what I mean. It's sort of very fluid in the sense that we have cooperators that die, cooperators that leave wealth behind, that really that interconnectivity could really happen. And I see what you're saying to us as being incredibly valid and applicable to the cooperator side, because we do have a lot of elderly cooperators. In fact, I'm flying to Denver tomorrow to accept 9 new ones at Mass on Saturday. some of whom are elderly people that have wealth. And so, but they leave the money and they don't know what to do with it. So how can I kind of leave that behind as a sort of as a part of my trajectory, as far as not only a structure that, and I realize this takes months and years. I'm a criminologist by training, by the way. I know nothing of accounting except for people legal things, right? But I'll just say to you that from a standpoint of how do I leave that behind to be able to have that infrastructure so that Sister Bernadette and other sisters benefit from the cooperators while they're still alive, to your point, right? How do we do that?
So a couple of things. First of all, let's always find the simplest answer to things. So without having to, go through the work of setting up your own foundation and your own 501c3 and all that kind of stuff, you just you can open up a donor advised fund. You can open up an endowment, so people can throw into that endowment for the benefit of the sisters. There's so many. That's simple. That's like, that doesn't even cost you to open it up, and then people can put money into that, and it can be held anywhere. And we would be, and we could hold it. But the fact is, it could be held at Fidelity or Knights of Columbus, so it doesn't matter. But it's the talking about it, that we have this, that you put into this, and but it's really much more simple than we think. It's literally just telling people, hey, have you thought about what's going to happen if when you die? Where's everything going to go? Is all of it going to go to your children, or are you going to leave some of it to the charity? Boom. Secondarily, then, I don't want to just focus on death. That's why I've changed planned giving, because it sounds like death gifts, to strategic or smart giving. Let's rename it. So what's strategic giving? Well, how do you maximize your income? Well, I just described a couple of ways for you to maximize your income and get some deductions while you're living, so that now you can make more while you're alive and then leave it after. So that's the focus. So our biggest challenge, my biggest challenge is, even right now, it's kind of like, okay, Anthony, how do we do it? Keep it simple, right? Well, just start talking about it. Just start talking about it. Start putting out questions like this. Do you have, I've just started this on LinkedIn. It hasn't gone live yet, but it's going to call Property for Purpose. Turn your property into purpose. And the whole thing is that if you, and one of the monikers is going to be, if you have real estate that you wish you could sell, but don't because of the tax, give us a call. That's it. And they'll say, yeah, I've got property I wish I could sell, but won't because of the tax. Now let's talk. I got you. So if you sent out to all your brothers, hey, does anyone have property that they have difficulty in selling, or whatnot, but you wish you could sell either because of some problem or because of the tax? Do you know it can benefit the sisters? Ask me how. That's it. I bet you'll get a bunch of people to say, yeah, I got one thing I can't get rid of. I got raw land I can't get rid of. Stuff like that. So to me, it's like, do a couple of questions, teasers, put a button on at the store, ask me how.
Right. No, definitely. And sister, when you get all that information, if you would send it to us, I'm going to meet with Father Mel this weekend, and I'll talk to him a little bit about it. But that is something we are absolutely in dire need to do. I'm a fourth degree Knight as well, but I'll tell you that we could learn, all of us, from the Knight of Columbus as to how they do things, right? But in the Salesian order, we really, at the lay person level, we really need to get it together to help them out, because there's a lot of missed opportunities, misinformation, lack of information that is just out there. And first of all, is to educate. Secondly, is to approach, right? But you can't approach without the educational part, because people don't really know. They don't know what they don't know. So anyway, to your point, so when you send that, Anthony, over to Sister, I promise she'll be using it. I may ping you a time or two just to ask you for some additional information. So thank you.
And just ping me with questions or ping me with, I'm happy to do, this wasn't a career move for me. This is not moving up in my career. This is, I'm here.
Well, it sort of is, but it's in a different platform.
Well, right. Closer to heaven. Yeah. But
the one that really counts.
but I'm saying is, we can do this. We just need to harness the power of the people in the church to do this. And it's a wave. And I'm telling you, yeah. Okay. Enough. I'm so grateful. Use me, ask questions, call me. Let's educate everyone in the U.S. That's Catholic to do this.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you so much for your sharing. And like you said, if you have more questions, we'll share his email is already in the email, but I'll share it again. So that way you have it. And that way you can just reach out to him with further questions. And I think it really was divine providence that introduced us to you and to Kathleen. And so, yes, I thank the Lord for making that encounter, and hopefully, God willing, there'll be a lot more in the future too.
Well, thank you for your prayers and your blessings, sister. Have a good rest of the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.